if we can get that plan in place for you, help you make things more efficient, more effective, increase your net worth, just set things up going forward, leading up to retirement, through retirement, to be as strong as possible. That's what the plan is about. When that's in place, you've got something that no matter what, you and your family are going to be okay. You're going to be taken care of. This is the Realize Your Wealth podcast by Aretec Wealth. We want you to be wealthy. We want you to feel wealthy. We want you to realize your wealth. All right, here we go. We're back. It's Friday. We've got spring is in the air. Markets have been pretty strong and moving in the right direction for the last while here. May's been a decent month. We're off to a good start. What's going on? What's happening today in your world, Greg? How you doing?
Yeah, just trying to enjoy the nice weather, enjoying that the markets are moving in the right direction. We're seeing some good strength there. This weekend, Sydney's actually gone, so it's just me and Leo for the first time all weekend together. So I'm on full-time dad duty. So excited and nervous about that. So it should be interesting.
You gonna be able to handle that, do you think?
I hope so. I mean, we're getting some grandparents to come in and help and give some backup here and there. And we got lots of time planned at the park and hopefully lots of naps as well. So it should be good. So we're excited. Bringing in the reinforcements. That's smart. That's the way to do it. That's awesome. But look, we're going to dive into this today. Markets, what we've seen, nice recoveries continuing. I think our portfolios, again, are close to all-time highs. We're even seeing things this morning. A lot of the positions today are having a nice run where we're seeing some of our technology names that we've talked about. Semiconductors are continuing their move higher, gold and some of the base metals and that. So seem to be all moving in the right direction. So some of the trends that were in place earlier in the year seems to be resuming. Oil is losing some steam, which is probably good for the broader market and the rest of the investments and good for our portfolio. But generally, things have been moving in the right direction. And last week, we sort of shifted gears because we've spent a lot of these podcasts, these videos talking about the markets and portfolio and strategy and what's going on out there. Last week, we got some good reception talking about tax planning and tax strategy and looking at things. So we wanted to broaden that out a little bit and talk more about financial and wealth and retirement planning, because that really is one of the core pillars of what we do and the work that we do with clients, and just go a little bit through what it is, our process, what are the things to watch out for, just give some insights there on the financial and the wealth and the retirement planning process. So looking forward to diving in that today, Greg. Yeah. So, Will, you mentioned it. We look at different pillars. So you got the portfolio, you got the plan, you got the person or the advisor. The plan is almost kind of like the glue, and what I find helps kind of give context to just about everything. So I mean, we're going to get into it, but just as a starting point, Will, maybe just from a high level, kind of maybe not so simple as what is planning, but maybe like what's the importance of kind of going through the overall plan?
Yeah, it gives context to all the investments, to the retirement portfolio. It just frames everything. I often think of the portfolio, it's kind of the engine that does drive all this, but the plan is sort of the structure around all that, and it's going to be everything else. So if we do a plan properly, it helps to give you that confidence that you're set up, things are going to look good going forward. It also helps to make sure that everything's set up as efficiently, as effectively as possible for you. Whether, yes, the tax, things like retirement income, cash flow, savings, the investments as well. But we'll look at real estate, lending, estate planning, really absolutely everything that's going to go into your net worth, your overall financial picture. We want to make sure that's optimized, is as efficient, as effective as possible. And so it tends to give that portfolio some more meaning, gives it some context where the ups and downs of the market maybe are not quite as emotional, quite as as painful when it's in the context of that plan. So I do think it's important, and they end up being, in some form, they end up being a written document. There's different sort of layers and levels of plans that we'll do, but what it winds up being, it's something that says, all right, here's where you are now. Here's where we want to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And here's what we need to do in the interim to get you there.
Yeah, and what I find, so all that, and then in addition, what I find it helps is just give like peace of mind to the investors and the clients, because our clients, they're going to be okay in retirement. There's lots of money, there's no issues, but when you have pieces kind of in different spots, when we put it all together, it just helps give peace of mind. And to your point, if there's a market correction or anything going on, it just helps kind of take the emotion out of it. So when we're going through that planning process, well, like what's kind of the process, or like how do we kind of start and build that out for investors?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a conversation. So it starts with a reach out and a conversation. I find a lot of times just more informal works well to start. Where let's just talk about it. Let's talk about what your goals are, where you're looking to go, what's going on. We obviously want to get we want and need to get information in terms of details and specifics, because ultimately the planning it's gonna rely on or be dependent on having good data. But just a conversation, it's just questions, it's discovery. We don't want to make it a huge, massive homework assignment where you have to pull every document that you've ever been through and provide it all to us. And frankly, for our clients, we have a lot of that information already, which makes it easier. But it's a conversation, it's questions. We can do it pretty informally. Often there is some work to be done afterwards. But I mean, what do you find, Greg? I mean, Greg is one of our in-house financial planning experts, or maybe the in-house financial planning expert. So maybe I'll put the question back to you, Greg. I mean, what do you find the process is like, and what's involved in the process?
Yeah, so to your point, like I kind of think of it in two ways. Like, in some sense, like we do need some of the hard numbers, like the X's and O's of like your spending, your retirement goals, like how much you have, your net worth, like all that stuff. But I kind of think of that as almost one side of the equation. And then the other side of the equation is like, okay, well, what are some of your bigger goals? Like, what are some of the risks, or what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the things that you want to accomplish in the future? And I find by kind of going through more of those qualitative questions, it almost helps us work backwards to say, well, if this is the end goal, what do we have to be doing today in order to achieve it? So I kind of think we want to look at it in both lenses. But to your point, Will, it really just starts with a conversation, and it's not something that we need to pull out in the last 2 years of like tax returns or anything like that. It's just more high level discussions, and then as we kind of get further along, we get a little bit more granular. But to start off, we just want to know, what are you thinking? What are your goals? What are your challenges? And then kind of work down from there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's not just getting the hard numbers and figuring out how much you're getting from a pension or CPP or OAS, or how
Right.
much is on your mortgage, or what your real estate's worth. It's the softer, higher level questions, hopes, dreams, fears, all those things. But no, in all seriousness, it's based around your financial goals, what you're trying to achieve, what keeps you up at night, and that's what we're looking to find out here.
Yeah, so when it comes to actually building out the plan, Will, what are some of the most sensitive or maybe impactful levers that we can pull that are going to have the most significance on the output?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the realities of this is there's actually very few levers or things that are actually going to change the outcome of the plan, because once we get all that data in there, that's all pretty fixed and static. Your net worth numbers and your financial numbers, they are what they are. But the big ones come down to how much you're saving and investing, putting in the portfolio leading up to retirement. It's also going to be when you retire and how long that retirement is. So obviously it changes things drastically if you're going to retire at, say, 50 or 55 versus, say, 65 or 70. And then when you get into retirement, it's the drawdown, how much you're taking out and drawing out of the portfolio. And then the big one, which as portfolio managers, as advisors, we help influence, is the rate of return and the performance on investments. So any of those, if we tweak them, and probably each of them we could talk a little bit more about, but your savings rate, your withdrawal rate, your retirement date, and your rate of return are the big ones. And if we change any of those even a little bit, once we start to put numbers together, it can have a pretty dramatic impact on things.
Yeah, so maybe talk to us a little bit about kind of the rate of return, because when building plans, like that's something that's kind of widely debated. Well, what's the rate of return that you use? And conventional thinking is to maybe use like a 3 or 4% rate of return and maybe like a 3 or 4% drawdown. But just curious on kind of what your thoughts are with that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. If you hear the 4% rule, and here's what we find: there's planning, there's portfolio numbers when we talk about investment targets and historical investment returns and what we're going to target on a portfolio, and then there's numbers that we use in a plan. And I've found that the numbers often, and often for good reason, are very conservative in terms of performance. It's there to stress a plan to make sure that regardless of what happens in markets, you're going to be okay. You're not going to run out of money. You're on course, on trajectory. What we have found, if you're using 4%, the numbers in the portfolio often are double or triple that, or more, right? 2 or 3 times where you're using 4%, and it's not uncommon to be earning high single digit, low double digits, so 8 or 12% out of the portfolio. So I think, if you're using 4%, it has its purposes for stressing and modeling, but it's probably overly conservative. Do we have to go and use 8, 10, 12% on a portfolio or on a financial plan? No, but there's probably room to say, okay, we've got it at 4%. Maybe we can look at something that's 6% or in the mid single digits, give or take, because it also ties in to that next point with the drawdown rate, that you're earning 8, 10, 12% annually on your portfolio and only drawing 4%. You may not be there just might be more room to be enjoy life, enjoy retirement, spending a little bit more. Like we don't want to push you to the point, of course, where you're running out of money and it's going to derail the plan. But earning 4% and only drawing that 4%, or projecting 4% and drawing 4% out, it's probably overly conservative in a lot of cases.
Yeah, because we want to make these plans, like we do want to make them conservative, but we also want to make them realistic. And the 4% rate of return in this environment that we've had, and with our process, is just probably way too low over the long run. So I guess the other thing, Will, is that something in the middle, maybe like a 6% rate of return. We can run scenarios very easily now with our technology and our software to say, okay, well, what if the investments are a little bit lighter? What if they're actually a little bit better? But you probably don't want that as like your base case.
Right. So, and it's having that flexibility, but it is even changing 1%. If you go from 4 to 5 to 6%, the outcome there is pretty dramatic. And then same thing with withdrawal rates and spending. Another thing that I've found, though, is that from a practical standpoint, I think ideally, you want to be earning as much on your portfolio as you're drawing down. And part of the reason for that is that if you're retired and you're enjoying life and you see these plans that they're modeled where, okay, you're going to have spent everything, I could tell you from a practical standpoint, it just takes sort of a behavioral, emotional toll if you see every year that you're drawing amounts that are dropping the portfolio down. Often, though, I would say a caveat there is there's a plan behind it that's, say, selling a property or downsizing or something else that factors in. But I think from a practical standpoint, or just a general view, I think when we plan, if we're drawing down as much as we're earning, that's a pretty good spot to be in, because your portfolio stays flat, or better is you're actually earning more in terms of performance. So if we model that you're drawing down 4, 5, 6%, something in that range, but then you actually end up earning 8, 10, 12%, it actually means the portfolio is growing. We can assess it every year. Is there room to draw it a little bit more, adjust those amounts? So the performance and withdrawal rates are the big ones for sure.
Well, we often say the best retirement plan is a portfolio that's actually working hard and is the engine and is driving returns. Obviously, we need to kind of put it all down on paper, but you can have something very nice on paper and it looks great and you run all these different scenarios, but if you don't have the portfolio or the engine actually driving it, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, once retired, it's not as important, but for clients, investors that are in those 5, 10, 15 years leading up to retirement, the actual retirement date and things like longevity. Longevity is another one that life expectancy is going to be a big lever, and it changes the plan. If we model it to 80 is definitely on the lower end because that's below life expectancy, but you probably want to be modeling that more to age 90 and to be really conservative, say 100 plus, but life expectancy, retirement date, that changes it because it's just a time function that you're adding more years in there. You're going to need more support, more buffer, more breathing room from the plan for sure.
Yeah, and for the 5, 10, 15 years leading up to retirement, like the savings rate, how much you're saving into the portfolio is going to have a pretty big impact. And then another one I'd just be curious to get your thoughts on is just the inflation rate, because that's something we're hearing
Oh yeah.
all a lot about in the news right now, and the kind of standard has changed on the inflation rate. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you necessarily want to run a plan with a really high inflation rate because it just starts to throw the numbers out of whack entirely when you look at it 20 or 30 years down the road. But I think what matters more is the spread of the portfolio over and above inflation. So inflation's around 2 and you're worried about higher inflation. What it probably makes more sense is lower the rate of return expectation on the portfolio, because the idea is, what if this is a really inflationary environment and you scale that portfolio returns down a little bit? Because likely if we move into that sort of a 2022 2023 type environment with high inflation numbers, that's going to put pressure on market returns and portfolio returns with higher rates, all of that. So a better way to factor that, I think, is just scaling back the investment returns. But that's an important one to consider. So it really depends on the client too and their personal circumstances, their plan, how we want to do that. And we might want to plan something that's more conservative for you, just given your own portfolio, your stage in life. And one of the things to talk about too, we have at Aretec, we have some different sort of layers and levels of planning that we'll do, often just with a conversation with myself or Greg or Keely and Roman. We can do sort of a pretty simple sort of level 1 financial plan for you, where ask some questions, make some models, projections, then it kind of goes from there. But maybe sort of talk about a little bit, Greg, about sort of the level 2 or the more detailed planning that you'll do.
Yeah, so the more detailed planning, I kind of alluded to it earlier. This is where we'll kind of take that base plan. So maybe think of that as level 1, but we'll start to maybe stress it and look at it from different angles. So maybe we'll start to run some different scenarios. So what if the rate of return is higher, lower? Another one that we'll look at is, what if the inflation rate is a little bit higher, a little bit lower? So point is, we're just going to look at different scenarios. We're probably going to create a little bit of like an asset map, which is kind of like a blueprint or like a document where we'll kind of lay it out and show you the net worth, show you cash flow, show how maybe one adjustment to the plan, how that impacts the overall plan. So I would say probably just like level 2 is probably just a little bit more thorough, and we're probably just going to do a little bit more of like a 360 view around the plan, as opposed to maybe just the initial conversation.
Yeah, most clients, if we can do a first stage plan, a level 1 plan, that's more than enough. Bring Greg in, bring the team to do a more advanced plan. And then one of the other things that we've done for clients that it's not going to be for everyone, but for clients that it really makes sense for and need it, we've got independent CFPs that we're working with, and we might do a future episode and maybe invite them on, but independent CFPs that we're working with to do just a lot more detailed, a lot more thorough mapping, some different tools and softwares. But even in our in-house planning, we've got great tools, great technology for doing all this. So Point is, it's kind of a progression. I would suggest that work with myself, Greg, the team first to do that initial plan is the best point to start before we start uh, escalating into higher level detailed plans, because often that initial plan is more than enough to get us on track and moving in the right direction, and then we can always advance that and build it out in more detail for you.
Yeah, exactly. And like we don't want to make it a very cumbersome exercise for clients and investors if they don't want it. So we often find a conversation kind of level one, like that's more than enough. And then the nice thing is we have that in place that we can always build on later if and when it makes sense.
Oh yeah. So the financial plan to wrap this up, it's about being wealthy. If we can get that plan in place for you, help you, yeah, make things more efficient, more effective, increase your net worth, just set things up going forward, leading up to retirement, through retirement, to be as strong as possible. We want you to feel wealthy. That's what the plan is about. When that's in place, you've got something that no matter what, you and your family are going to be okay. You're going to be taken care of. And we want you to realize your wealth. That's what we're all about. That's what Aretec Wealth is all about. So we'll be back with everybody next week, and enjoy the weekend.
Have a good one.